All right.
That's I feel good now. Yeah, it's like I said, it's early enough. There's still people mowing lawns and birds
Mm,
chirping. Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, fun times.
Awesome.
Awesome. So we're here. Yay, yay, yay. Once again, welcome back, Bill Patton. Yeah. I'm so
Thank you,
excited to
Shay.
have you back. I'm Shay, and I am the host of the Court Ready podcast. And I have Bill Patton, the esteemed author and coach, tennis coach, and neuroscience enthusiast, and most recently, jet setter. So, yes,
Yeah.
Bill has a lot to share with us. We are going to tackle one thing at a time today because there's just so much action that has been packed in the first quarter of 2023 in Bill's
Yeah.
life. And I am super excited to unpack, um, pun intended. So, all right. Um,
That was a good
it
one. That was a
appears
good pun.
Thank you. I just came up with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, Bill, it appears to me, correct me if I am completely off base, but based on the limited information that I have, what I know about you, it seems to me that from time to time you do travel for tennis work.
Yeah.
And in my humble opinion, it appears from the outside looking in that you're a bit of a like tennis missionary. So it's like you're on
Wow.
these tennis missions trips. So I'm very curious. I
Yeah.
understand
For
that in
for
January
Jesus.
you okay. Right. So one of your recent trips was to Australia, and I just want to turn the floor over to you, allow you to talk about it, and I'm going to jump in with questions. I have so many questions, but we will
Yeah.
start with why you went there, what the trip was about, who it was for, and we'll get
Yeah.
into what all you did.
Well, I want to start with something that might be of practical interest to, people. And
Okay.
so I'll start with the conclusion first. So,
Nice.
if this was research, we'd call this is the abstract of the Australia trip, right?
Hmm.
One thing that was really fascinating to me, having spent 16, days in Australia and living amongst the people, not
Right.
touring, but
Hmm.
living with Australians and being with them on a daily basis and seeing some of the same people again and again. It's really interesting to me how self-effacing they are, and
Mm.
more so than Americans, more so
Yep.
than Brits. I think Brits are probably more self-effacing than Americans are. Um, we're seen by them as being the ones that we pump ourselves up, right? We boost ourselves up. Everything's great. I'm great. You're great. You know,
Right.
and they
Right.
don't do that. But the thing
Hmm.
that was interesting to me was that in the midst of coaching not only brand new beginners but also emerging players who are like a 10 or 11 UTR, um,
Yep.
and even former tour players and coaches who are trying to take things to the next level, how
Right.
there was this counterproductive self-effacing humor going on. Um, so one thing I
Counterproductive.
yeah, no, because people put themselves down in a comedic way,
Mm.
and it's endearing, but it's not productive. And
I
so I
see.
deal with this in my lessons on a pretty constant basis. That
Hmm.
um, self-effacing humor is great at work, especially when you're the boss.
Sure.
It's great. It's great when you're an expert and you want to put people at ease.
Mm-hmm.
It is not great. It is not helpful when you're trying to go to a higher level in sports performance. So I
Absolutely.
try to talk people out of that. I'm like, okay, I understand that you want to make light of this, but instead, what I want you to do is shift your mindset to one of, I can do this. I will do this. I'm not going to put myself down. I have to believe
Mm-hmm.
in myself 100% right now in order to make that happen. Um, so that's the,
So,
yeah,
if I may, since we are starting at the end, may I ask if you're still in contact with your students and coaches that you met and worked with in Australia?
I am. I am. And
Okay.
that part, the relational part of the trip was really amazing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there
Excellent.
were some really, truly amazing moments. So, and yeah, we're still in touch. So, there, Ryan Hanrahan, who goes by the moniker the tennis marketer, hired me to
Mm-hmm.
come there. So he brought me in, and the idea was that not only was I going to mentor him directly, but I was also going to work with a lot of the young up and coming coaches in Australia. So we put on
Right.
4 different events for coaches, and
Mm-hmm.
then basically he handed me over his clientele for 2 full
Nice.
weeks, and so I taught his lessons for him while he observed how I did that. Um, and that was really awesome. So Ryan and I spent a lot of time in the car together, and we had 4 or 5 times that we went and did touristy things.
Mm-hmm.
So that made it feel like a working vacation, but just being there was really cool. Um,
Yeah.
One thing that was really strange, I took a walk in the bush, right? So in
Okay.
Australia, they say the bush, right? But in
Yeah.
America, we would say the
The
forest,
forest. Yeah.
the forest, okay,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, or out into the wild, or what have you. Okay,
Mm-hmm. In the
so
woods. Yeah.
so I went to the woods, right? Okay, so I go out on this walk in the bush, and I'm on a conversation with my wife because we're dealing with buying this house in San Diego. So we're having this, you know, conversation via satellite, right? And all
Mm-hmm.
of a sudden, this 5 foot lizard ran across the road. And I lost my train of thought at that moment, right? I was like, oh, what was that,
Of
right?
course.
So
Yeah.
later, so about 10 minutes later, I saw a fellow hiker, and I was like, what do you know about the lizards around here? And they were like, oh yeah, monitor lizard. Yeah, you have to be careful because their saliva is so filled with bacteria that if you didn't get help within 24 hours, you're dead. If you got
No
bit by a monitor
way.
lizard, you must immediately go to an emergency room. Yeah, you will
Wow.
die of sepsis. Boom. Yes, very quickly.
Wow. I've never
Yeah,
heard this. This is
right.
amazing.
So
Okay.
and And so the other thing is, it's true that um, Australia is extremely dangerous, and they
Mm-hmm.
have 16 of the top 20 most poisonous snakes in the world. And I
Mm-hmm. I
heard
see.
it seems like everybody in Australia has a poisonous snake or a poisonous spider story, and some of them are quite
Wow.
tragic. And so I think that that's something that's really interesting about growing up and living in a place like that. And while I was
Mm-hmm.
there, a young girl was bitten by a shark and died.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, I mean, I think that that's an interesting thing, and I don't know, it made me
Mm-hmm.
happy to be back in the states where we don't have
Certainly.
quite as many things that can kill you so quickly. So
Yeah.
um
Mm.
but that's, and then one other thing, I met a coach who instantly became a dear friend, and She has terminal cancer and is waiting on a kidney.
Oh
So
my. Okay.
she
So
brought
we.
her young proteges to me to come get coaching
Mhm.
and development, and that was I don't know. That's a pretty solemn responsibility to take on.
Yeah.
So, but that's
Y-
the kind of stuff I live for. I think that that's what it
Right.
really made it a meaningful trip, and more than just going and taking a few pictures and getting in a car and leaving.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So
so my suspicions have been confirmed. You are a tennis missionary. Maybe just a missionary with a side hustle of tennis.
thank you for that. It's a nice compliment. I appreciate it.
Indeed. So, okay, I'd love to get a little bit more into the tennis part of your trip. And I do very much appreciate you sharing the insight about some of the students' methods of dealing with their progression, and the fact that you said that their self-deprecating humor was in some ways harmful, or limiting their progress. So talk to us about, first of all, what stage and age of students were you most working with?
Yeah,
Did we
there
lose?
wasn't like
Okay.
one stage. I was working with everybody,
Okay.
and that's what I do. I'll work
Awesome.
with anybody who comes to me. So I had kids that were picking up a racket for the very first time in their lives.
Wow.
And I had, and we actually went to the Olympic Training Center in New South Wales,
Mm.
the site of the
Mhm.
Sydney International Tournament, and we
Mhm.
spent some time there observing the top juniors in Australia. And then
Okay.
I got the attention of the head coach, Ben Pine, who's a great, great coach, and Australia's doing a fine job. And it's funny.
Yes.
I was like, "Hey, coach, can I have a moment of your time?" Right? I mean, he's very busy. He's got
Sure.
he's got 12 kids, all deeply involved in training.
Right.
The one thing that I noticed that was true of every Australian junior was that they were turning their heads too much, right? So that was
While
so that
in
was
okay.
because it kind of gave me a two-part question. First it was the
Mhm.
self-limiting thought thing, and then it was the who was I
Mhm.
working with. But so the interesting thing is I just have to say that one of the things in my life that I've had to overcome is self sabotage. Uh,
Sure.
so this has been
It's
something that
very
had,
common, right?
yeah, it had been a theme in my life, and I think I was pretty high percentile on self sabotage. I was really good at it. Um,
Mhm.
but when I stopped sabotaging myself, then things got a lot easier. So, and
Certainly.
I still have to stop and catch myself before doing a self-sabotaging behavior. So
Mhm.
I think the number one thing um, is that it's good to stop and think about what you're doing. Um, and this
Okay.
this is lends itself to something that's kind of broken in the last 6 months. We may have talked about this in the last time. I can't remember our last conversation quite so well, but there's an
Sure.
interesting theory that I really like because it affirms a lot of the things that I've already believed, and it's starting to have some scientific uh, underpinnings to it. And that is
Mhm.
that all of our decision making is subconscious, and it becomes conscious a half a second later.
Mhm.
So, for instance, something happens at work and you're very frustrated at your boss, and the urge comes. Subconsciously, you have decided to cuss out your boss. And then a half a second later, you become aware of that decision, consciously, and then you have to tell yourself, no, don't do that.
No. Right. So
Okay.
you have the
But how many times
opportunity to intercept.
in life do you have this subconscious thing to act impulsively that comes up, and then you have to consciously say to yourself, yes, do that, or no, don't do that. So and then just something that just I just saw last week, which is amazing, is that they think that they have identified the place in your brain where the interface comes in the mind body connection,
Where is it?
right? Well, I mean, that doesn't matter so much,
Okay.
except the fact that they found it.
Okay.
Because I don't think we want
Okay.
to get too deep into
Too
like the
technical.
structure of the brain. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
not get too
I
technical. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just curious. I guess it's just me. But okay. That's certainly very interesting, right? Honestly, for the majority of our listeners, I think it's more relevant that we focus on the piece or the element where you're saying that there is a subconscious element and a conscious element, and not that, and there's a space in between, right? So we have within our ability to control our impulses, as we call them. Um, and I believe personally, you're on a slightly different track, and I have not taken this more scientific approach to it, but just, awareness, consciousness, and sensitivity to our thoughts and feelings and all of that, as you were describing um, your former life's self-sabotage and the fact that, these impulses still occur, right? But now you've become more sensitive to them, more aware of them, and instead of just allowing them to take over and govern your actions, you now say, okay, no, that's not something I want to do, or yes, this is something that I want to act on. Right? Am I interpreting
That
that correctly?
wow. Yeah, yes. That was
Okay.
extremely well said. And it's funny because I had to hold back because you spurred me on to some stuff. And
Okay.
like,
Well, it's your
yeah, I'm
show.
like,
Let's go.
no, it's good. No, it's good. No, I like that this is a conversation. When I was podcasting,
Always.
I much did the same thing, and people said, "Bill, you talk too much," and I'm like, "I don't care. It's my podcast. You can listen to it
That's
if you
right.
want." Yeah.
Exactly.
So, so okay, it lends itself to something Viktor Frankl said, and I just got done
Mm.
reading Man's Search for Meaning, which is something I strongly
Mhm.
recommend. But um,
Absolutely.
and he said that in between stimulus and response, there is a moment, right? And
Mm.
so
Wow.
he knew that. He knew that. He didn't have any data to support
Right.
that, but it's
And what are we
true.
talking, a
And
century ago?
now science is backing that up and saying yes, absolutely, right? And
Mm.
so so let's put it into a tennis thing, all right? So
Okay.
somebody comes to the net, and the inexperienced player says, "Oh no, they're at the net. I must pass them now," right? And
Mhm.
so then
Mhm.
or I have to pass them cleanly, right? I have to get the ball past them, right? So then
Right.
they rush their shot, or they go for too fine of a shot.
Yep.
And then, but the experienced tennis player starts to learn to, okay, they're coming to the net. I need to get the ball low and wide, and let them volley the first one,
Yes.
but make them stretch for it, and I'll get them with the second one.
I'll
So
get
that's
this
an
next
example
one.
of kind of a fine tuning thing. Another one is it's second serve and it's break point, and the person says to themselves, "Don't double fault." And I can
Mhm.
guarantee you that if you say to yourself, don't double fault right before hitting
You're
a second
gonna
serve.
double fault.
About at least half the time, and then the other half of the time you're going to hit a really weak second serve, right?
Totally.
So,
Totally.
so you have to catch yourself at that moment because the thought can enter your mind. You
Mm-hmm.
cannot control these things, right?
Right.
So when
Right.
that thought enters your mind, then you can do this. You can say no, no, no. I don't want to think that. What do I want to think? I want to
Yeah.
think, okay, deep ball to the backhand,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So replace the thought with something that's actually going to give you a better chance. Uh,
Yes. Now, this is really crucial, and I'm sorry to cut you off. I have an important question here. And that is, I feel like we're touching on something super important, especially in the tennis context. You know, people talk a lot about positivity, having positive thoughts. But what you just said is that some of these thoughts we sort of can't control. They're just going to enter our minds and it is what it is. So now our job is to decide what to do with said thoughts. And one option, as you mentioned, would be to replace the thought, but I don't find it super effective to replace a negative thought with a positive thought. So let's say, the negative thought was, oh, I might double fault, or I'm at risk of a double fault. Let's say I'm down 30-40 and I'm serving. I just hit my first serve and missed. So now it's second serve. And I'm like, oh dear, I might double fault. So trying to replace that with a no, I'm going to hit a second serve ace is probably not going to work. So the thought
well, okay, let
replacement,
me. So,
okay.
I, maybe you've misinterpreted what I said. I'm not saying that you're going to get an ace, and
No, 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 no. I know you didn't.
I'm also not a positive thinker. I don't believe in
Right.
positive thinking, right?
Agreed. So we're on the
I
same
believe
page.
in thinking
100%.
that work. I believe in thinking that works. You know,
Yes.
so
Yes.
yeah. So the two things I tell my players, especially when they're fairly new to me, because I don't want to
Mhm.
get too technical, is I tell them, look, there are two things that can help you through the mental match: breathing and good thinking. Right.
Yes.
So thinking well can get you through.
Constructive.
It's not, and
Yes.
it's not positive thinking. It's just
Right.
thinking about what do you want to do,
Mhm.
right? And so if you think, oh, I want to hit the ball deep to the backhand, you're
Right.
much more likely to get a deeper shot than you would have than if you're
Had you not
thinking
had that thought. Yeah.
right. So
Right.
so yeah.
It's
So but yeah,
constructive
I
thinking, not positive thinking. That's what I was getting to, that we have
also
to
not,
be
yeah.
intentional. Go ahead.
Well, and also not pie in the sky dreamy thinking,
Right.
right? On the other hand, I mean it's a really interesting field of things, all right?
Okay.
So now one thing I also tell my players is that on the very first serve of a match, I want them to hit the serve as hard as they possibly can. And the
Mhm.
reason is because then you kind of create this open field
Freedom.
of energy for now if
Yes.
it happens to go in, if it just happens to go in, do it again,
Ooh.
right? And
Yeah.
if that one goes in, do it again, and if
Keep
they
doing it.
just keep going in, don't stop,
Right
because
on.
it could be your day. It could be your day, right? Now,
Yeah.
as soon as you miss one, then I want you to go and I want you to start spinning the ball a little bit more, and but use the fact that you've created. It's like um, blowing the ice off of the wings of an airplane, right? So you
Mhm.
just got to create this baseline of aggressiveness that you can go back to. It's hard to start super conservative in a match and become more
Same.
aggressive as the match goes on, It's
Yes.
far easier to start overly aggressive and pull back to a manageable place. But, and then another thing that I do, especially in a so called high stakes match, like let's say it's playoffs, winner goes home, right? So
Okay.
I'll speak to the group and I'll say, look, it's possible that one of you or a couple of you might play the best tennis of your life today. It could happen,
Yeah.
right? And if it is happening, keep going. Don't stop.
Right.
Yeah. Don't dwell on
I've
it. Don't dwell on it. Just keep playing the best match of your life. It's okay, right? Don't get freaked out. Don't don't get freaked out. All right.
Yep.
But if you are not playing the best match of your life, then just compete as well as you possibly can. Just do the very
Mhm.
best you can today. And
Yes.
one thing that's very interesting to me is how often, out of a group of 10 players, one or two of them just play lights out. And how, as a group, very few of them have a poor day on
Mhm.
with that as a cue. I mean, it still happens.
Yeah.
It's still you can still have 1 out of 10 who's not playing well, but
Certainly.
and that cue seems to open up the field of them playing up to that.
I see. Yeah. Yeah, it's we talk a little bit about energy, right? And I certainly believe that the energy, especially amongst teams, whether they be doubles partners or actual teams, high school players or college players that are playing in a team environment, that the energy is indeed infectious. But especially the positive energy, which, again, I hesitate to even use the term because it's so misunderstood. Everybody's trying to, stomp out the automatic negative thoughts and
Yeah.
replace them with positive thoughts. And like I said, I don't find that to be
Let me give you an
effective at all.
example. Let me give you an example. All right.
Yeah.
So here's a phrase I hate. I hate this phrase. You got this. You
Oh my
got this. And
gosh.
when do people
Right.
say you got this? No, people say you got this when the situation looks hopeless,
Oh my
right?
god.
And
And you're
clearly
not
the
wrong.
person doesn't got this. I mean, clearly they don't got this. They're down to set the break and they're
Yep.
flailing and people go, "You got this." And it's like it has means nothing, right? It's like
You haven't given
don't
me
say
anything
that.
worthwhile to work with.
Yeah. You got this. I mean, it's just like,
Not
"No,
useful at
stop
all.
that."
Yeah.
Right. Now, now this has been proven. This is interesting. There's a guy, Dr. Gary Sales, University of Indiana Sports Psychology Department, did
Mm,
did studies on what he calls the cognitive affective profile.
mm,
And
okay.
so the words that you choose to say are a reflection of what's going on in your mind and your body. And the words that you think and say can affect your body. And he did this experiment. There's a tennis pro I know who is such a great guy. His name's Wendell Pierce. He's an
Mhm,
amazing athlete. He gets him up there, and I've seen this replicated in different places doing different things. And he says, "All right,
mhm.
Wendell, what's your dominant arm?" And his dominant arm is his right arm, right? So he says,
Okay.
"Wendell, I want you to say, I can't, I can't, I can't, I can't.
Mm.
And say it with feeling. Say it like you really believe it. And I'm going to press your right arm down, and you're going to try to
Yes.
keep it up." And he just pushed his arm down like it was nothing. And then he
Right.
said, "Okay, left arm, say, I can, I can, I can, I can." And the arm wouldn't budge.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so, I mean,
I've seen a
so
similar experiment.
So, yeah, so saying I can do this, we can do this, that is empowering,
Mhm.
right? We can
Yeah.
do it. We can come back. We can play better. Right. Here's another
Right.
one. This one blew my mind. I have an Australian friend named Bryden Yam. Bryden. What a name. Right. Anyway.
Bryden.
Okay. So my junior team's playing his junior team. My kid is up a set and a break, and Bryden audibly, I could hear him tell his kid to play better. And
Mm.
I'm like, what? I'm like, that's ridiculous. No, I know. I scoffed at him. I
Right.
pulled him aside. I'm like, that's ridiculous. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Right? He turns to me and he
Like,
goes, "Watch."
how is he supposed to just do that?
He turns to me and he goes, "Watch, just watch." Right? And lo and
Okay.
behold, the other kid raised his game and came back and beat my
No
kid in three
kidding.
sets. And by the end,
No
he'd just gone to a
kidding.
completely different place. And I was like, what? And so it's a really amazing cue.
Yep.
But what do people do instead? Instead of telling themselves to play better, they whine and complain. They go, "Oh, I can't believe I missed that shot. Oh, what's wrong with me? Why am I playing so poorly today? Blah, 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 blah." And they try to act
Mm-hmm.
like they're actually a better player than they are.
Mm-hmm.
So it's far more productive to say, what do I want? I want to play better. And
Right.
I walk my players through this. I say, I want to play better. And they
Mm-hmm.
say, because they do. And then I say,
Yes.
I can play better. I will play better. Because for some reason, I don't know, I can't explain exactly why that all works, but
Mm-hmm.
the I want kind of sets the objective.
Mm-hmm.
I can opens up the possibility. I
Yes.
will creates sort of the determination to make it happen. And
And
then
I love
and
that.
then all of a sudden they play better and I'm like, "Oh, see? Do you see what you're doing? You're playing better."
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I absolutely adore that thinking, that train of thought that begins with what you want. It's setting the objective, and it actually helps to reset from this place of, again, negativity, which basically is a focus on the past. Even though it may seem like a recent past, it's still the past. Okay, so I've missed a few shots, I've, dropped a couple of games, or whatever the case may be. You are afraid because you're feeling a sense of loss of control, you know? And so instead of focusing on the future and what you can do to fix that situation or get the outcome that you want, you're focused on what has transpired prior to now, which none of us can do anything about. Again, whether it's recent or distant doesn't even matter. You can't do anything about it. You just missed the shot. You, like you said, all the wham wham wham, all the whining and complaining is not going to change the fact that you dropped the first set. So now what do we do if we're still in the match? And we've seen players at every level of tennis come back from, you know, what seemed like insurmountable deficits to win
Yeah, two
matches.
sets down and
And
five love. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I
exactly.
had some kids that were down 5 love in the third set and won 7 straight games. Yeah, it was nuts. It
Yeah.
was, so yeah, I mean, and that's where, I mean, it's, I don't like to glorify being behind and coming back, but, if you're behind, then you
Sure.
have to believe that you can. Yeah.
Right.
I'd much rather
Yeah,
just
and
be ahead all the whole time.
that's what everybody wants. That's what
Yeah,
everybody
yeah.
wants. Ideally, in every athlete's lifetime, their lifetime of sport, all they really want is just to start ahead, stay ahead, and never experience a deficit. But that's not how it works. And honestly, it wouldn't
Yeah.
be nearly as interesting if it did.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I will never forget the time I won a 3 hour and 45-minute match. I was down 4-love in the second set. Brought it back to 4-all. Won the second set. In a long tiebreaker. Then in the third set, I was down 5-1.
Oh
Got it back to
my.
five. Got it back to 5-all. Right.
Yep.
Went into a
Yep.
tiebreaker. Was down 5-2 in the tiebreaker. Was
Wow.
down 12-11, 13-12, 14-13, and
Ooh,
won 16-14 in the third set tiebreaker.
holy
But there's a
smoke.
but there's a reason. So now I'm going to tell you why that happened. And the reason was because my wife was in the hospital and I'd been with her for
Ah.
72 hours. And I told her
Mhm.
I'm gonna default the tournament, and she said, "No, you've
Mhm.
been with me 72 hours in the hospital. You can go to the tournament, but you better win."
Right.
So, I mean, I
Yeah.
couldn't give up on that match.
There's
I
power.
couldn't come
Yeah.
back and say, "Oh yeah, I tanked at the
I
end."
left and I lost. Yeah.
Right. So there was just no, yeah, failure was not an option.
Right on. Yeah, and there are all these powerful moments and words and things and people, events or what have you that tend to galvanize us to go and give our best effort, right? And that's all we really want. We don't necessarily want to win all the time. We just want to be able to um, at will summon our best level of play. If we know that we're capable of
Wow.
more, sometimes you just get, outplayed. Sometimes your opponents are simply better, and every weapon you have is diminished by the weapons that they have. Every strategy you come up with is shut down. So, but if you can, will yourself to play your very best, usually we walk away from a match or what have you with positive feelings. But it's when we can't seem to find our game, whatever that is, that's when, we
Yeah.
walk away frustrated.
And I have an example of that. Actually, the most favorite match of my life is a match that I lost. Um, and the
Oh
reason is
my.
because,
Oh.
um, because well, so my partner and I had won our semifinal match, and we were going into the final against a team that was sandbagging horrifically, right? And so I mean, both guys
Did
were
you know
one
that before
full.
the match started?
I did. So I'm like,
Oh
okay, well,
my.
we won the right to get embarrassed in the final, right? So both of these guys were at least one full point above the level of the tournament. So, fueled by the
Yeah.
fear of embarrassment, I played the best match of my life.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and people watching saw. I was told after the match that for a large portion of that match I was the best player on the court. There's just one problem. We were up a
Incredible.
set and a break, and I decided to get fancy. So I played
Fancy.
one. I decided to. We had a certain strategy we were playing that was working, and I
Yep.
decided to do something
Mhm.
fancy to just out of point of pride. And then that team destroyed us on that point, and they rallied and buoyed by that
Mhm.
emotion. Then they rallied and played better and beat us, and so it was kind of a double-edged sword. For a period of time I was the
Mhm.
best player on the court, and then also I was the stupidest player on the court and created an opening for the other team to win. But
Eh,
I'll never forget the fact that, fueled by the fear of embarrassment, I took my game to a high level because I didn't want to
yes.
face that humiliation. So,
Yeah, exactly. So that's a great word, Bill. Fuel. Like we all need fuel. Our bodies need fuel, our minds need fuel, and our emotions need some fuel. And sometimes you can find it and sometimes the tank is empty, you know. But
yeah,
um
yeah.
but that's where other people come into play. In one case it was your wife, in another case it might have been your partner, and at times it's our coaches. I had an example, a similar example to what we were just describing, which I may have shared with you before, but very early on in my tennis career, I had a match that I was in a playoff situation playing singles, and this match was clear across town, probably 40 miles from where I lived. And so I'd gotten up, the match was at probably 8 a.m. or something because it was summer and we were trying to avoid the Georgia heat. So, anyhow, I get up super early to drive a long way off, and I had told my coach at the time that I had this match, and he just kind of very casually said, "Yeah, okay, well, call or text me later with your winning results." And so I get to this match, and the first 5 games, this woman just rolls over me.
Mm,
And I find myself having a Sharapova moment. I go to the back fence and I cry. Like
mm,
literally, I'm like, about to shed some tears here. I'm like, I cannot believe this. And I was like, no way can I tell my coach that I got bageled. Like, this just
mm,
can't happen. So I tell myself, all right, Shay, you have to win 3 games starting right now. You've got to win 3 games. That'll make it respectable and it'll look like it was one break. Right. So I win my serve, and so I hold. So now it's 5-1, and then I'm like, okay, just all you got to do now, just win 2 more games, break and a hold. I go on to win the match. I mean, it was like
mm,
all it took was just remembering that I'm going to have to, after this match, I'm going to have to call my coach and share the results with him. And he's expecting a victory. Now, why
mm.
would he actually expect a victory? He knows nothing about my opponent. He knows nothing at
Right.
all other than he helped me to prepare. But yeah, it's just sometimes, you can find the fuel. So,
Well, and there's more to it as well. So yeah, I mean, I hear the part of the person part, and
yeah.
the emotional part, and how you got the fuel from that. So,
Mhm.
you know, also true, not to be diminished by this, but there's also this thing called the Hawthorne effect. So,
Okay.
um, the Hawthorne effect is very interesting. So, the way they discovered it is they went to do a study on lighting. So they went into
Mm.
a factory, and they had people with clipboards, and they turned the lights up a little bit, and then they charted. They kept track of productivity, and then
Mhm.
they turned the lights down, and productivity increased, and then
What?
they turned the lights up and productivity increased, and then they turned the lights down and productivity increased, and they were like, what's going on here? But
What
what
is
it was,
happening?
it was the people with the clipboards.
Oh my gosh. Are
So
you kidding me?
so you people were like, oh, they're watching, better work harder, right? So like, I mean, and so think about work too. If you're the only one in the office, it's really tough to get things done. But when you have somebody right beside you also working, it's easier,
Certainly.
for whatever reason. So,
Yeah.
um and that's, I try to go to coffee shops where people go to work, because it's like,
Mhm.
okay, they're working, so
Oh
I'm
yeah.
also going to work. So,
Yep.
but then so coaching also induces the Hawthorne effect. I mean, just the fact I know that kids play better, lots of people play better just because I'm watching,
Yep.
right? And they go,
Yeah.
I'm so glad you were there, right? But then other people play worse.
Yeah.
So, yeah, some people play worse. They just
I think
really
I'm
don't
in
want to
that
be
group.
watched at all. So, you, but in general,
Yep.
most people are going to be motivated by having someone that's invested in them paying attention.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So true. So, Bill, all right, I want to pivot for a moment. I know you are a neuroscience enthusiast, right? And I want to know if, since the last time we spoke, if there have been any developments in the neuroscience space that you've learned about or anything you care to share.
Well, I already shared a couple of them,
Yep.
and um, and so yeah, I mean, the thing that's really been awesome is to have some of the things that I have believed and to be true, to be affirmed by science. So
Yeah.
that's a big development for me. That's really happy
Mm-hmm.
for me. But
Yeah.
you know, I think the one about how all decision making is subconscious brought a lot more
Mm-hmm.
clarity to that for me to realize, okay, you know, then how do we manage that? So I like this particular progression of stop, look and listen, decide, act, repeat, right? So
Yes.
let's
Say
do
it
this.
again.
Let's go stop, stop.
Yep.
And that's what people don't
That's
do.
where
They
we
don't
miss.
stop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stop, right? No, because people just like to keep going, push through,
Hmm.
you know,
Yep.
don't ever, don't ever stop and think. All right. So now I
Hmm.
think the best application is immediately after having played a point to stop and just to evaluate what just happened in that point, right?
Okay.
I
Yep.
won it because of this, or
Hmm.
I lost it because of that, right?
Yep.
What what just happened? And then you can go, okay, they won it because I hit a short ball to their forehand in the middle of the court,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Okay. So, yeah, don't hit it there, hit it someplace else, right? So come up with a new plan. I don't want to do that again. I want to do something else, right? You don't have to
Yep.
beat yourself up about it. Just
Yep.
just know what just happened,
Right.
right? So the looking and the listening would be the reflecting back on what just happened, right?
Right.
And you can also look and listen to your opponent. You can look at them, you can observe their body language. You can see if they look strong or if they look discouraged, you
Yeah.
know? Are they a good sport or a bad sport, right? Um, and
So
a little side note, sometimes people try to make the match really ugly and they like to send some stink eye along with some daggers, right, through their eyes. And so I recommend not giving those people eye contact because then
Right.
their daggers and their stink eye have nowhere to go. But if
Right.
you let them go in your eyes, right,
Then you
then they
may
get you.
actually feel
They
it.
will get you.
Yeah.
So you just go, oh, stink eye. I don't want to look at that. I'll just,
Right.
I'll look at the tennis. Oh, I love the tennis ball. All right. So
Hmm.
stop, look and listen, decide. So you have to make a decision. Okay. I came to the net and I won the point and I approached, down the middle. Oh, it worked better than coming to their backhand. Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
so okay, I want to do more of that,
Hmm.
right? And then
Right.
then it's in the doing, right? So
Yep.
and sometimes it takes a little while to make a shift. So like here's an example. A lot of times when I'm coaching a match with high school players or where there's coaching allowed on changeovers, I
Hmm.
will introduce like a strategy shift.
Okay.
But then I also don't get angry if in the first two games the execution is not quite there.
Okay.
Because if you're
That's
going to
fair.
make a quantum shift in your strategy, then you also have to let your game catch up with what you've decided to do. So sometimes in the early
I love
going,
it.
the execution's not quite there, and then you just have to adjust. You have to go, okay,
Hmm.
I'm missing my approach shots wide by 2 feet,
Hmm.
so I need to aim 4 feet that way so that they will be 2 feet in instead of 2 feet out, right?
Got
Or,
it.
oh, they're
Yep.
going long, so I need to aim lower. Or they're going
Hmm.
in the net, so I need to aim higher. I mean, whatever it is,
Yeah.
make that adjustment, you know?
Yep.
So be rational and objective about what's happening, and then you can
Right.
make changes.
Yep.
Um, so long. One more thing, and then I know you have another question, but I want to just get this in there. So I
Mhm.
had this hour and a half long conversation with Torben Ulrich, right? And Torben's
Okay.
son Lars founded Metallica. But anyway,
Oh,
Torben played Davis Cup for Denmark into his 50s. So I asked
wow.
Torben, I'm like, Torben, what would you tell people about how they can best learn tennis? And he says,
Mhm.
well, Bill, because he's Danish. Well, Bill, I
Yeah.
think you need to know what you're doing. Because if you don't know what you're doing, how will you change what you're doing? And if you change what you're doing, if you don't know what you're doing, how will you know if you've made a change?
Oh my
So
gosh.
and stop and observe, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What just, and so be objective and try to just see clearly what's happening. So
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't have another question. I was going to mention that this is reminiscent of one of our prior chats. We mentioned the word judgment, and I think that in this case, what you're describing is basically a rational observation absent of judgment. Like basically, you're just evaluating as if you yourself were the coach. You know, what would I tell myself if I were coaching myself right now? What would I say? I don't think I would be harsh and critical and say, well, stop doing this and stop doing that. You know, I mean, of course, there are many times I find myself, especially playing doubles, where like, well, stop feeding it to the net person or stop, hitting it to her forehand. And it's like, okay, there are going to be plenty of things that we can identify to stop doing. But what can
there are an
we
infinite number of wrong things to do. Yeah. So get
exactly.
busy with your process of elimination, because yeah,
Right.
you're not going to outlive it. But now, yeah. So which I have a couple of things based on that. So that's a
Okay.
great comment. So I do this little exercise with people where I have a target on the court, and then I hit
Mm.
towards the target, and then I ask them, good shot or bad shot, right?
Ooh.
And sometimes they struggle because they don't know, was it good, was it close enough to be called good,
Oh,
or did it miss
wow.
the target and so therefore it's automatically bad, right? And so it's like, well, how do you determine that, right? So then,
Right.
some people are very harsh and they'll say, well, you didn't hit the target, so it's a bad shot. And other people are
Mhm.
very forgiving and they'll say good shot because it was pretty close, right?
Mhm.
And then I
Mhm.
go, trick question.
Right.
Okay, so it wasn't good, it wasn't bad, it was 2 feet to the right and 3 feet short, right? So
Right. And those are
so that
facts.
ball in the net is not a bad shot. It's a ball in the net.
Right.
which means
So it
aim
was too
higher.
low. Yeah.
Right.
Just means it was
Yeah.
too flat or it was
Yeah.
you know.
Right. So go higher. Hit the ball over the net. Hit it where you want. Now, so now you referenced hitting to the net person. And so, my good friend Kenda Hart was, I think, the first one who shared this one. He said, whatever the object of the sentence is what you're going to think about. And what you're thinking about,
Mhm.
you will hit to.
It's going to
So if
happen.
you
You're just
say
going to
don't
repeat.
hit to the net person, you're thinking about the net person, you look at the net person, you hit to the net person, and then you go, oh, how did I do that? Why did I do that? So instead, hit somewhere else. So,
There we go.
so now in doubles, this works great. This works great, especially on return of serve. So you've got the net person. Look at the side tee where the single sideline meets the service box
Okay.
and hit to that. It's 4.5 feet in the double in from the doubles alley. Hit
Absolutely.
to that. If you hit
Yeah.
to that, the net person has no chance of touching that.
Very, very,
Hit
very little. They'd
to
have to be the
that.
most amazing poacher on the planet. Yeah.
No, it's yeah, it's like really impossible. No, you'd have to be you would have to be Jamie Murray or whoever the current
Right.
top doubles player is in the world to be able to get that. But
Yeah.
so yeah, hit two where you want to hit two. Yeah, don't think
Absolutely.
about what you don't want to do. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, gosh, I've been playing for almost 13 years now. And someone just in the past year, year and a half suggested, you know, I want all of your returns deep back to the server. And I'm like, okay, thumbs up, I can do that. It's just
yeah.
something you've given me to think about. And now, I have used that tiny strategy or tidbit ever since. And it almost always works,
But if you
because,
go to, but
yeah,
here's this is actually a little better because if you go to the side tee, you
yeah,
move the server over and you create a space for your
opening
net
for my
person.
partner. Yeah,
Yeah, so you
to put
get
the ball
about you
away.
can get 4 or 5 more feet of space for them to hit through. So I like
Hmm.
the shorter cross court returns because it pulls the server over.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah,
yeah, I get
absolutely.
it
I
though. I mean,
think,
if you go and you can push them back, that also can be helpful. Yeah.
yeah, it just like situationally. So when you were mentioning that you give your students a target, you hit towards the target and, is it a good shot or a bad shot? My initial thinking is, well, it depends, depends on the situation. You know, we're we're not robots. None of us, including the professionals, are not robots. So, we're gonna miss, and sometimes we're going to miss, by varying degrees. Pros may be able to hit within, a 1 foot radius, I don't know, 9 times out of 10 or 95% or even higher. But for the rest of us, if I can get it within,
Wait, no,
foot and a half.
wait. You
Okay.
just did it. That was
I
that.
did the same thing the students do, huh?
You just did it. Okay. So, no, start to believe that you can hit targets on the court.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Thank you.
See,
Thank you,
that's
Bill.
that self-effacing humor
Yes,
that
yes.
doesn't allow you
That
cuz
doesn't work. Yeah.
yeah. So say this, I can hit the ball anywhere I want.
Man. And guess what, Bill? Like how people say, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And it is really true, because there are these moments, even when I am playing, that I'm like, okay, I'm going to hit that side T on my return. And then I do it because in those moments, I feel so free. And it's not that I feel like I can't miss, like I just can't miss.
Yeah.
And when I say I can't miss, what that means is even if I do miss, it's a surprise to me. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, you know, okay. And not only that, but I know what I need to do to correct it. Oh, well, that time I did this or I did that, or I didn't do this or I didn't do that. But next time I will
Right.
definitely hit it, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well,
you're absolutely right.
when I a number of times I've been doing this for a while, so I've probably seen articles like this like 5 or 6 times in my career where a journalist will play tennis with a top pro, and then
Okay.
they'll write about the experience of having hit with them, for half an hour,
Hmm.
45 minutes, or whatever, right? So,
Yep. Yep.
and the one commonality in these articles is not that the journalist was so incredibly impressed with the power of the shots, but by how incredibly well they were placed. How
Yes.
all the
Okay.
top players can pretty much put the ball wherever they want, whenever they want, right?
Hmm.
Except that what they're all trying to do is prevent each other from doing that. All right.
Right.
So
Right.
now, now the other thing is, I'll never forget John McEnroe, retired John McEnroe, on the David Letterman show, and they go
Mm.
out onto the street, and David Letterman wants John McEnroe to hit tennis balls through an open apartment window across the street, 3 floors up,
Okay. Wow.
across the street in
Across
New
the
York
street.
City.
Right, right. Three
Right. I mean,
floors up.
it's yeah, it's way farther
Insanity.
than a
Yep.
tennis court across the street, right?
Yep.
And it's
Yep.
3 floors up. And McEnroe's first 2 tries were right so close. And then he
Yep.
did it on the third try,
Yeah.
right?
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
So,
crazy. I wouldn't be surprised if he had some practice time before that,
well,
um,
sure. Yeah.
but
But it's
no, it just shows the incredible ability of top players. And so just
mhm.
allow yourself to think like a top player, and
Why
and
not?
say to yourself, I can hit the ball wherever I want, and then you can start to hit the ball wherever you want more often. I don't
Yes.
I was doing a clinic the other night, and I had this lady. She comes up to me and she says, I want to be more consistent. I'm like, stop
Ah.
saying that, because because it's people only use that word to beat themselves up. No
Mhm.
one's ever happy with their consistency. I'm like, okay, ma'am, I am not going to do that. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going
Yeah.
to help you make more shots.
Yep.
Make more shots and hit the ball more often to where you want to, right? And she was
Yeah.
like, and then, and then 90 minutes later, she was doing it. And then she's
Yep.
like, wow, I now hit the ball where I want. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that's like the story that in the mental game, right? Where I think coach was working with this woman who said, "Oh, I can't do this." And he's like, "Well, just think as if you were a professional player and there were cameras on you, just swing your racket in a manner that would be consistent with that." So, that tends to produce better strokes, if we're thinking the right way, but not just, weird, crazy, positive thoughts, oh, I think I'm the awesomest, but, more focused thoughts of here's what I intend and here's what I'm going to do.
Okay, you
That's
ready
the
for a
long and
mind
short of it.
blower? Okay,
Yeah.
that's awesome what you just said. Now, think about this
Sure.
word, acting,
Acting.
acting,
Mm-hmm.
acting,
Okay.
acting,
Yes.
right? So, what is acting? Acting is doing,
Doing.
acting
Yes.
is pretending, acting is doing, acting is pretending, right? So,
Right.
act like you want to be, right? And so maybe
Right.
you need to be an actor,
Right.
right?
All the time.
Be an
Always.
actor. I'm pretending. Yeah, I've been pretending to be a tennis pro for 34 years, and people have just
Right.
done in.
People
It's
have
like,
bought,
yeah,
yeah,
nobody
they're
ever.
buying into it. Nobody ever questioned you, huh?
I was in Florida, and I was talking to a second year coach, and I was like, "Hey, how's it going, man?" And he says, "Oh, I, it's my only my second year, and I feel like I'm going to be exposed as an imposter, right?"
Oh
And
my
I'm like, "Yeah,
gosh.
well, I'm 30 years
Imposter
in, and nobody's
syndrome is
figured me
real.
out, so there's there's hope.
So you'll probably
There's
be
hope.
okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's
No,
beautiful.
I have some imposter syndrome coming up because I'm going to be speaking at the USPTA SoCal convention, and I follow Michael Joyce, who
Oh,
was
wow.
coaching Sharapova for 6.5 years,
Yep, I know that
and
name.
Brad Gilbert's also speaking there, and
Oh
then and then
my gosh.
yours truly. So I'm going to be exposed soon.
Oh my goodness. Will it be, I'm assuming it'll be recorded, if not televised.
It will be recorded. I will make sure I get a recording of that.
Yeah,
So yeah.
please, please do. I'm excited for you. That's a actually an awesome segue to talk about what's next in your world. We are going to have, if you're open to it, another talk about your move. I am so excited to hear more about, what you've done, what you're doing today. I follow you on all of your socials, so I'm aware, but I would love to share with our audience some of the new things that you have coming up. So, anything you care to share right now about
Yeah. Well, my
coming up?
most recent book that I've published is called Tennis Strategy 101. And so that's been out for a while. But
Awesome.
I'm working on a book called, well, I'm not going to tell you the name of it, but it's going to be, not yet, because I don't want anybody to steal my name, um,
Good.
but it's going to be a book about that's comprehensively about how to take your net game to the next level. So
Awesome.
whether you're a net avoider, a net visitor, a net regular, a net controller, or a net
Mm,
dominator. So
mm.
so wherever you are along that, you'll have the tools that you need to go from net avoider to net visitor, and from net visitor to net regular, and net regular to net controller to net dominator. Um,
Yeah.
And then I put this out there, and somebody said net nightmare, and I was like, no, that doesn't sound right. But uh, so I'm not using that
It's
one.
like
But
right, because
but
it
so
depends on whose
be,
focus.
because I started writing Tennis Strategy 201, and then I
Mm,
decided to make an intermediate project, which was this net thing. And then it
yeah,
went from being just simply like an ebook to having a life of its own, and it's become its own separate book. But
I love
then
that.
Tennis Strategy 201 will follow quickly on the heels of the other one. So
Yeah.
I hope that, man, I've been procrastinating since I moved. It's really set the timeline back on publishing that. I was actually hoping
Okay.
to have that done, last year, but I think maybe in the next month I'll have both of those books out.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, I am excited for it, especially because of everything that I know about you and your focus on sports psychology and neuroscience and how we think and act and, how all those things are intertwined. You and I may have talked a little bit about, my relationship with net play. And so I'm excited for it. I know I'm not the only player whose strong preference is to hang out at the baseline, but with the understanding that it is simply impractical to to do that, and impractical on the low end, and just basically you be a lot more effective and dominant, the more the closer you can be to approaching the net and getting on top of it. So I love that continuum that you described from, visitor, I guess, to dominator,
Well, it's no, it
I
starts with avoider.
avoider. Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, that
that
that I guess
avoider.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
oh yeah.
thankfully I've overcome the avoidance piece, but I'm
Okay,
sure there was a period where I was simply avoiding it, even not was. I mean, gosh, probably not even that long ago because I play so much doubles. Man, this is a good
yeah,
segue. Well, I'll let you go with this. But I was such an avoider that even if I was drawn in by a short ball, so like you can't help but move to the ball if you want to win, right? So you can't just
right.
let everything go. So here I am. Here's Shay running to a short ball because, I enjoy running and I don't mind. I run to a short ball and then I would literally run backwards, retreat, retreat. like, you know, I didn't feel
Yeah,
comfortable in that area. So it's like, okay, I got to go back to my comfort zone. But
yeah,
but yeah, now that I feel more adept at hitting balls, hitting volleys and shorter balls, approach shots and so on. I have so much more confidence. It's a whole game changer in terms
yeah,
of the tennis strategy. So I'm excited for this book and excited for everybody to read it. So hopefully we can give Bill Patton the fuel that he needs to to not self sabotage the timeline
oh
and
boy,
bring this to publication.
awesome. I'll make sure
Yeah,
you get an early copy. I would love your executive review.
absolutely. I'm all
All
for it.
right.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you, Bill. I'm going to let you get back to your life and enjoying this beautiful day. Thank you again for sharing time with me. It's been
All
a
right. Thank
pleasure
you,
as
Shay.
always.
All
Yeah.
right.
All
Take
right.
good
Have a
care.
great rest of the week. Yep.
Thanks for watching,
Cheers.
everybody. All right. Bye bye.
Cheers. Bye.